Hello, today I'm going to be making the insert that goes between these two pages, which is my early March. I guess it's kind of like early March and into the middle of March, because the 14th of March fell over the weekend. That was created right here, that was captured right here. And so this is just going to have some extra pockets that cover some of the news stories that were in the news as the pandemic and COVID-19 crisis emerged that weekend, and also a bit of some of the cards around just a story that happened in my family that weekend. So I just wanted to give you a bit of context for where this insert is going to go. This is a Becky Higgins Design H. This is my last one, and I don't know if they make these anymore, so maybe they do. Leave me a comment if they do, and I will order some more. But you can always cut down half of one of these pages if you needed to. They cut really easily. Just make sure that you cut so that the stitching is included. Like if you cut along those stitches, then this pocket won't stay shut, and you do end up sacrificing this one. Like you won't be able to use this. You'll just have to throw it away. Although if you do have a fuse tool, you can keep it. I like to keep some for practice, just to know when my fuse tool is heated up. And also sometimes you can kind of piece together things if you have a fuse tool. So if you have a fuse tool, hold on to it, but if not, you can just toss it or recycle it in some other way. And so this one already has one flip, but I have more of, I have more content here than what would be. At first I was thinking I'd just do a couple of flips, but I have way more than I need for that. So I'm going to put this away. I still haven't done my cover page yet, but I'll get to it one of these days. So you guys probably know that I usually use these for my spreads, just as templates to help me kind of get the lay of the land. And so for this one, this is one half and this is the other half. So I'm just going to use one. So put this one away. And I'm just going to get started. So I'll put you on fast forward at this point. Okay, so I'm going to start by having a look at some of my stamp sets. I have these stamp sets which are from Studio L2E. These are what I call Bad Day stamps. There are two different sets and I don't know the names of them. This is an LE Studio title stamp set that I'm not going to need, so I'm just putting that away. Some of these are supplies that I already had out. Now, the page protector that I'm using is a Design H, if I haven't said that in the previous video. And then I have these simple stories. They're flip pockets, and they are from the Snap collection, and I have them in 3x4s. I also have some 4x6s. I find them very versatile for adding to your project life or pocket pages when you have too many either cards or journaling cards or photos, but you don't want to do a whole other spread or take up extra pockets on your spread. So as you can see, I am just spreading out my photos and leaving some room for some stories. I'm starting to think as I go along about which stamps I'd like to use. This is a Studio Calico stamp set, and I don't typically buy their stamp sets, and but I really liked the weekend theming on this one, and I tend to tell a lot of stories that happen over weekends, so I decided to buy that one despite the fact that it's one of those larger stamp sets that I have a difficult time storing. And so I'm a little worried that I'm going to forget that I even have it because it's stored in a weird place. But anyhow, I'm going to try and remember. And here I am at least using it here. Sorry for that gap. I edited that out. I was doing something on my computer. So I'm just thinking about what I'm going to do here. I obviously don't have a 4x6 card yet, but what I thought I would do is spell out COVID using that stamp set that you just saw. That was a Jen Scow stamp set. It's called the Cypress alphabet, and I have the upper and lowercase versions of it. But because I was trying to scrap this in a fairly quick amount of time, I decided to not do stamping. and to use some of my many, many letter stickers that I'm trying to use up also. So I decided that I wanted to spell out COVID in red. So you see that I just grabbed a bunch of red letter stickers from my Thickers Razcog. And I'm looking for something that's bold, but I actually really, really love this letter set right here. Some of the other letter sets I had pulled were more bold, but I settled on this one. It's called Hardcover by Thickers. And then I just took out all of my 4x6 cards. As you can see here, it's kind of hard for me to flip through them on camera, but this is what I would be doing. I keep these in the top of my Razcog that's right beside me. And I just pulled them over here so that you could just see me flip through them and try to decide which one I want. I don't really have a color scheme here, so I could really pick any of these. I kind of, that one with the clocks kind of stood out for me, and then I thought that this red one, because I like this idea of using red as almost like an attention grabber. And so I was thinking about potentially using lots of red here, and then I decided to go with some grays instead. And I really like this AM PM because it kind of plays into my story of this was what we were talking about all day and all night. So you just see me going through. These are some Studio Calico kits that I have, and I just kind of keep them in their kits for now. I'm going to be kind of putting them into my stash in the coming days, but for now they're still arranged by kit. And this was all scrapbooked actually several months ago at the beginning of the whole shutdown, and now I'm narrating this after the shutdown, so I hope I remember what I did here. So as you can see, I'm just going through. These are random. Some of them are Kelly Perky, some of them are Studio Calico, and some of them are, I think it's just Kelly Perky and Studio Calico 3x4 cards that I have just kind of all mixed together. I just went into my stash to find a black and white striped piece of paper that I could use for journaling. Not really striped, but just lined. And this is a Felicity Jane one from their neutrals pack that I bought several years ago. I bought 6 or 7 of these neutral packs because I just love the black and white designs on them. And so I've had this one in my stash for quite some time. And as you can see, I cut a 4x6, and then I also cut some 3x4s. And then that large scrap that was left over, you will see come up in the next video that I post. I'm going to use that for a large chunk of journaling that I'm going to do in my next several pages in this project. So I had to spell out COVID so that I could find the middle. The middle is the D, and in COVID-19 that is. And so I wanted to put kind of make it so that it spans across the center of this card. And I wanted about half of it on the gray side and about half of it, meaning it being the title, on the white side of this card. And so I'm just going to use this ruler here to keep my letters nice and straight as I place them. I'm also keeping the card nice and straight with my grid mat so that I can kind of keep the ruler lined up and keep everything in place. And so that stamp from Studio Calico that says Weekend Stories, that was kind of the jumping off point for this card. This card is going to be the title card for this side of this insert. And so I'm just using my mini Misty here, and I'm going to, because I'm stamping on a card that I only have one of, I want to use my Misty to make sure that I do a good job of stamping. And so I just primed my stamp with my white eraser, and then I inked it and it stamped beautifully. I wanted a really nice bold black because of this idea of I want this bold title, as bold as it can be with these letter stickers and that stamp. So it says Weekend Story, AM PM COVID-19. And I thought about doing some other things on this card, but I decided to just leave it as it is. I like the plainness of it. It lets the message just pop out at you. And I always have to be very careful about cleaning my hands after I use that VersaFine ink, because I find it's so juicy. It's really easy to get a little bit of ink somewhere on you, and then it stays wet and transfers all over the place. So now there's been a huge skip in time because I got that far and was interrupted, and then months went by, and so all that happened at the end of March, and now here I am just a couple of days into, I guess this would have been mid-June. And sometime during that time, I did not scrapbook at all from mid-March until mid-June, late March until mid-June. Sometime in there, one of my kids borrowed, or my husband or somebody borrowed my my ATG, and I don't know what I was thinking here. I thought that all of that big thing of tape was what was still to be used. And so I thought I better rescue this. But then I realized, wait a minute, that was the used part. And the part that I was trying to rescue was actually what was left. And there was so little of it that I just decided to just throw it away rather than trying to respool it. Grabbed a new refill. And I'm just going to very quickly put this on. If you have trouble filling your ATG, I do have a refill your ATG video that people seem to find very helpful. It's quite an old video, but it still gets it's one of my most viewed videos on my whole channel. It still gets a lot of views and comments, so check that out if you need some help. Now here I made a mistake. I should have watched my own video, because look, see, I made that tape go through and diagonally, and you need to kind of just make it go in and out of that little jig that's in the that little spot that's in the spool. You'll see what I mean if you watch the video, which I guess I should have done. This is one of the side effects of taking a big long break from scrapbooking, is you get rusty and you forget how to do things. So I am just putting together, so basically what I did here was I pulled this out, I went to the last frame of the video that I had captured, and set everything out the way that it was when I left off, and I'm just picking up where I left off, only I'm skipping to the second story. And so this is a series of screenshots of me, and so I'm just doing some journaling in between of my phone, not of me. The journaling says: 1, woke at 4, checked time, saw garage door had opened at 1 a.m. 2, checked find my friends, saw Scott is at IWK, that's our children's hospital. 3, freaked out. And so this is just screen captures of me discovering those things. And then there is a series of text messages that says me saying, why are you at the IWK? What happened? And then Scott says, why are you checking my location at 4 a.m.? And I said, what happened? I am not in the mood for joking. And he says, I was going to call you in the morning when we knew more. And meanwhile, I'm like, just tell me what happened. So I'm like, I saw the garage door open and close at 1 a.m. And then he tells me what happened. Basically, Liv was having extremely low blood pressure. Her Apple Watch let Scott know what was going on. He called 811 and they told him to call 911. 811 is kind of our non-medical emergency line, non-emergent medical line. And they told him to call 911. He called 911. They came. Her heart rate was extremely low. It was dangerously low. So they took her in an ambulance to the hospital. It turns out, I thought it was anxiety, but it turns out she was extremely dehydrated. She's a teenager. I guess she hadn't drank very much all day and was on the go. And anyhow, she's been drinking water ever since that day. I think it scared the living daylights out of her. So, as you can see, I have been putting the text messages onto those 3x4 cards that I picked out, and I'm not really thinking too carefully. I really just want to get this documented and done, and then I'm doing some journaling. My journaling says, although she was stable and discharged by the morning, Steph and I decided to leave Crop and Create early on Sunday so I could be with Liv. I volunteered to rent a car and go home on my own, but Steph insisted on us both leaving together. And then in brackets on the edge of that card, I put it was dehydration, just to make it clear in the journaling. I didn't really end up saying what it was, so I just said it was dehydration. Now I'm looking for another card because I actually have more journaling than what I realized. I just wanted to say a little bit about what actually happened at Crop and Create, kind of like from my perspective. It's a little bit not personal enough. at this point, so here I'm just adding some. I'm saying, there was a moment at 6 a.m. after waiting 2 hours to be able to wake her that I thought about sneaking out, leaving a note, renting a car, and going home so Steph could stay. But as soon as I woke her and she heard what was going on, she was up and ready for anything I needed. She's such a good friend. I absolutely adore and love Stephanie very, very much. So I just wanted to make sure that that part of the story wasn't lost, because that's my favorite part, is how my friend was there for me when I needed her. And my other friends who were at Crop and Create totally understood that we left early. By this time, she was stable, so it wasn't a rush. Like, we didn't kind of dash out and leave very quickly. We waited until Crop and Create opened so that we could get our craft supplies and say goodbye to our friends. And I actually tried to do a bit of scrapbooking because I thought maybe I'd try to stay, but it ended up I was too distracted to really scrapbook. So I just wanted to go home and be with my baby. So here's me writing in the margins here. It just says it was dehydration. And so now I have all of these text messages that I have to put on these cards. And this is where those double-sided Studio Calico cards come in really handy. So the Ellie Studio and Kelly Perky cards are single-sided, but I really love these double-sided cards because it means that I don't have to use 4 cards in these flip pockets. I can just use one and kind of have photos on either side of it. So now I am kind of trying to decide how else I'm going to plan this out. In the meantime, I'm just going to stick this one down. I like how nice and neutral that card is with the gray. And I think I'm just going to write a caption on the bottom of that. That's just footage from our security camera. I took a screenshot. I kind of went back in time, and because it took a while before Scott actually answered my text message, and I was kind of freaking out and wanting to see what happened. So I checked the video security footage, and I actually couldn't tell in the footage who those extra 2 people were. And I thought maybe Liv was having a sleepover with somebody. I thought maybe they were teenagers. So what I'm writing here is, in retrospect, it's so silly that we thought the shutdown would last 2 weeks. So this is another text message that I had screen capped that Scott sent me over the weekend. And it just says, he was talking about his schedule, and he was saying he may get asked to do some extra work if the 28th is the reopen date. So I just thought it was kind of amusing that we thought that we might be reopening as early as the 28th of March back then, because this is the weekend when it really started to become clear that places were going to shut and business was going to come to a halt. We didn't really realize how much it was going to come to a halt at this point. It was still just evolving. So I really like that I had these screen caps of these text messages anyways. I had actually captured that one because of the pie. It was Pie Day. And it turned out that the thing that was above that message was even more interesting. So I am going to be placing these screen caps so that they are lined up. The top 2 are lined up with the bottom 2. And I just balanced it out so that the top 2 were mostly white and the bottom 2 were mostly black. That's because I captured them at different times of the day and my phone switches to all black after a certain time, like a black background, so that it's easier on your eyes. And then what I'm writing here is, it was so strange to open the news and every single story was about the coronavirus. Little did I know this would be the case for many weeks to come. And so all these headlines are literally all about the coronavirus, and they're early headlines, so it's kind of interesting where we're just kind of starting to, people were panic buying and leaving empty shelves and frustration at supermarkets. And those were some of the stories that I captured there. Just the headlines, not the full stories. I mean, if anybody is really interested in learning about the coronavirus in retrospect, like 20 years from now, I'm sure they'll still have Google and they'll just look up what kinds of things were happening. So I'm just kind of trying to keep this insert as my own perspective, as opposed to, let's document for history's sake what happened. And it looks like I'm being a little nostalgic here as I flip through. I'm just kind of looking at my own earlier pages. And I know that this insert doesn't go here, but I'm just kind of enjoying the pages. And this is where it goes. So I slowed down the camera so that you could see me put it in place. And this is where it belongs. And as you can see, it's very simple, very little to no embellishing on the insert, but there's embellishing on the pages around it. It's really just an addition of some additional information, as you know. So that's how the flips work. I did put them on the outside. I talked about putting them on the inside so that they wouldn't extend over the edge, but I think if you're just careful about how you line it up, you can put them on either side. So here's where my next pages will go. Stay tuned because I've already scrapped them and there's a video coming up. Take care and have a great scrappy week.